Everyone, welcome to tonight's documentary screening and presentation. I'm Nan Hee-in, a correspondent, governor of the club, and your host for tonight. And tonight, I'm really honored to present our guest speaker, Slovenian photographer Matjaz Tanc. Tancic, who's taken a trip to various locations and in North Korea and chronicled the experience in a 20-minute documentary we're about to watch, as well as photos he's taken with a 3D visual technique. Matjaz is an award-winning photographer with his works being published in Vogue, really established magazines like Playboy, Marie Claire, and so forth. And after the screening, he's going to present us with some images, and then we're going to have Nicholas Bonner from Choreo Tours and Studio, plus Meg Maggio from Pekin Fine Arts to join us for the Q&A session to discuss his trip. But first, I wanted to let Matjaz talk about a few things about his journey and a few things about the film just before we view it. How about that? Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks, everyone, for coming on this lovely evening, and thank you for the hosts and Nick and Mac. Yeah, it was 2014 when I went to North Korea for 10 days. I went there with Choreo Studio, with Nick. We're going to talk about this a bit later. And we traveled all around the country, basically. We managed to go to East Coast, West Coast, South, a little bit to the North. And our focus was to try to capture everyday life, everyday people, but not like stolen portraits, not so documentary, but really to have like post portraits of people of all walks of life. So from families to young people, old people, farmers, doctors, musicians, etc., etc. While we were shooting, my companion Vicky, that went with me for a trip from Choreo Studio, she managed to shoot this beautiful video. Actually, with every portrait, I had only about a minute or two, and Vicky, she was most of the time helping me. So how we shoot it, she usually just set the camera on the tripod and then went to help me. But in the end, we managed to get so much interesting material, despite, we didn't intend to shoot the documentary, that we managed to put it together in this 20-minute piece that I'm gonna play to you. This documentary will also answer to many questions that you might have. And after the documentary, I have also a slideshow where I'm gonna show you more of these portraits and talk about different little stories that happened to me in North Korea. So yeah, let's go for the documentary first. As you heard a couple of times, the project, was shot in 3D. The reason for that was, first of all, they have a big tradition of 3D itself, and that's why Nick came to the idea of doing a 3D project. And the other thing is, every time you hear about North Korea, you're going to hear either about, North Korean propaganda or Western anti-propaganda. And they always use masses and masses of people, which are really easy to, write whatever you want about them. You show marching soldiers, you can really easily write about missiles. So you can write, or you can show in a beautiful painting workers on a field all smiling, and it's easy to say everybody's happy. So I wanted to go the opposite way. I wanted to shoot individual person and tell the story about them. So each time I try to do a talk with them, I try to at least get their name, occupation, where they're from, and some personal details. And also shoot them like separate from the crowd, shoot only the person in the space. And using 3D technique, you really engage with every subject. When you put the glasses on, it transforms you from passive viewer to an active viewer. You are in the same space with this person, and it's really hard to ignore it. And you're so close to them that it's even uncomfortable to you. They're gazing straight back. So you have to take time and you have to think about, about basically about their story. 3D technique, basically what you need, it's two images, one for the left eye, one for the right eye. Technique itself, it's only about 10 years older than photography itself, so it's been invented in the beginning of 19th century. You could see in the video, most of the time I use only one camera. This is because I didn't have enough time to set up two cameras with two exact same lenses, same settings, and and then synchrone with the flash every time I use the flash. So that's why I cheated a little bit, and I told the subject, breathe in, be really still, and I clicked twice or sometimes 3 times to get a 3D image. This is, here's a 3D setup, what I would usually use for, let's say, more commercial or something that it's not, that you have more time with the subject. So every time the subject is still, you can use one camera. Every time when the subject is moving, you definitely have to use 2 cameras at the same time. And this is how 3D picture looks like. Basically, it's left image and the right image, and you can see, let's say, by the edge of the building, of the roof, there is a slight difference between them. And here, I don't know why it's this strange crop, but I'm gonna go through a couple of portraits. Some of them you've seen before in the video, how they were made. And then I will explain a little bit about stories that occurred while we were shooting. But basically, as I talked in the video, every time we went to some location, they first tried to sell me the location, and that went through a local guy, usually dressed in a local dress, explaining me how wonderful the location is, how fast this was built, how many times the leaders came there. And all the locations that I picked were locations that I knew that I can encounter people. So I didn't go to let's say, I don't know, they asked me, do you want to go, can we dim the lights a little bit? So we can see the photos more. They asked me if I want to go to mausoleum where the leaders are buried, mummified. I said, can I take photos there? They said no. Then I was like, yeah, then we're gonna skip it. So every time I wanted to go to, let's say, a full library or to a subway station, basically to locations where I know that it's gonna be hundreds and hundreds of people, so I can handpick the person that I really wanna shoot. Because in a case of this school, the school, we came in the afternoon, the school was already basically empty, and the only people left were, these two playing accordion, and they were like 2 guys in a technical class, like poking into the old television. So I tried to avoid this because, if you go there on a tour, you're gonna probably see the same girl playing the same tune. So I tried to avoid these cliches and got, to the locations that they were, let's say, recently opened for tourism, or that they are too far for tourists to visit. A good example is this factory. We got lost even a couple of times driving there because it's so rarely on tourist trips. And this is the first car salon in Pyongyang. So, things, for me, it was like, traveling in past. I was born in Yugoslavia. I traveled to Russia. I traveled in Cuba. So I'm aware of these images, but mostly from the books or for listening to my grandma to explain how it was. But when you come to North Korea, you're like in a perfectly preserved time capsule, basically. So, you're like surprised by everything, everyone you want to really explore. So it was really, really, like, for photographer, it's really inspirational place. And as soon as you land to North Korea, you can see, images that you see lots of time in the media. And it's really easy to portray Korea as, an undeveloped country. There's like people painting this mural with, he's hanging from in a barrel. Soldiers everywhere. images of the leaders. They're like gazing for you, like anywhere you go. It's gray. You're like on this hotel in the island, and you cannot go off the island. And this is, the picture that usually journalists see when they go there, because journalists and photographers are not allowed to go there, and when they go, their tours are definitely not catered to them, but it's like catered to the system. So you see what they want to see. I was there more into pretense of doing a touristic project, so I had much more freedom. So I could like handpick where I want to go, and that's why hence had more freedom on every step. And on the other side, you can also see how you can portray this country as, completely normal, everybody happy, having fun. It just depends what kind of, subtitle are going to put under the images, basically. I try to avoid this black and white vision of it, and that's why I select people as a subject. Yeah, here it's again a bit strange crop. I'm sorry for that. And this is my team that you've seen already, Mrs. Kim and Mr. Khan. And this is our rocket. And basically they have 3 rules when it comes to photography. First rule was don't shoot soldiers. Second rule was when there are images of the leaders, you cannot crop images. You cannot crop one out. You cannot crop head of one leader. You have to have them every time. If there are 2, keep them both or cut them out of the image. So that was another rule. And one was don't shoot the construction sites. So I obeyed these rules, and they also then tried to help me more and went out of their way lots of time to help me to get the variety of people. Because at the first day or 2, when they didn't trust me yet, only thing I could shoot were mostly these guides that they're presented to you when you go to every place. And they are nice. It's a lady in a nice traditional dress, but after you have one, you've seen him all. And this is how our schedule looked like. It was like really tight, like 8:30 to 9 here, 9:30 to 9 to 9:30 here, 9:30 to 10:30 here. And all these marks, they are marks when I changed the plan, because they wanted to show me only the most beautiful things. I wanted to see the least beautiful things. And every time was like, okay, we're gonna try. And they went on a phone call and came back with positive news or negative news, and then we like crossed everything and see what was possible and not. And here is a good example, what I said, that I went to the places where you could see many people. This is Grand People Study Hall. I think this is also on average tour you can go there, but it's really fascinating place where they have, after school or after work activities. And here they just were writing German test. And I was like, wie geht's? Alles gut. And everybody started to laugh. And, it was lots of people and it was easy to break ice. And then I could, ask 1 or 2 students to pose for me for the photo. And this is also in the same building. It's the audiovisual department where you could get some propaganda music and listen to it. And I asked them, do you have any foreign bands? And I was expecting some Russian or even, from the Balkans. And they had Madonna and Chumbawamba. So like the most unusual selection for foreign representation. And then, you see people studying, and I was asking, can we ask that girl to shoot? And he went to her, explain what we're doing. And then we had a chat, and she told us she's a drama student preparing for a test, and we took a portrait of her in front of the bookshelves in the library. Another crowded space, of course, is Subway. And despite it was crowded, I had quite big difficulties to get someone to take portrait of, simply because if you go to Subway, you go there with a reason. You want to go somewhere as fast as possible. So I was there pretty desperate already with a setup camera, light, everybody just rushing past me. And then after, 20 minutes, 2 tipsy guys came to me like, hey, what are you doing? And I explained them, oh, I'm taking portraits. And I was like, oh, can I take photo of you actually? And they were like, sure. And they were like two government officials just from a meeting. And here they're all sweaty with the soju smell in front of the cherry blossom tree. So yeah, sometimes I got to the people, and that was, yeah, there were two occasions that people actually came to me. When I went to North Korea, I was hoping to get 20 portraits, which would be 2 per day. In the end, it was so tight schedule, I managed to take more than 100 portraits. Not all of them, of course. I mean, there were lots of repetition, as I said, there was lots of guides. And yeah, here you can see the subway. It's not as complicated as Hong Kong. You have line 1 or line 2. And there is only one place that you can change it. And yeah, even if we got, everyday people, sometimes they were like, again, wanted to be some compromises. I really want to shoot this guy in the back. He had like sleeveless shirt tucked in the pants, hair really nicely combed back, nice trousers, ironed. So he was like a proper Brooklyn or London hipster. I was like, this is something that is going to be, interesting to show, because everybody in the West could drew similarities to his style actually, because, he's still vintage, and vintage in the West is modern again. And we stopped him. I asked, oh, can I take a photo of you? He said, sure. But then Khan said, yeah, but you have to put your jacket on. So, with a sleeveless shirt, without the badge, he was not representative enough for the country. So I could not shoot, I could not shoot him without. And then I was like, then I lose all the purpose. I have already so many guys in the exactly same suit, exactly same badges, so I'm not gonna shoot him. But then there was one guy who was like really curious, always around. I was like, me, almost like. And I was like, okay, do you want to be in a photo? He was like, yeah. And first I didn't want to take a photo of him because he was just like too annoying almost. But in the end, it came out as one of the moodiest and the nicest photos. And also with him, we spent quite some time chatting because here there were people ice skating, so I had to use 2 cameras. So before I set it up 2 cameras on a tripod on an ice skate rink, we could kill time by chatting. And he was a youth boxing champion. So he was just in Kazakhstan on a championship where he won. So it was really nice to speak with one teenager who even managed to get abroad because of his sports career or rising career. And this is the busy road to South Korea. That if you everyone that been to North Korea, you probably took the same road to DMZ. And here is our guide checking when the tourists from South Korean side are back to the building, so we could go to see these barracks which are like right on the border. Here, I'm not sure if you can see, but there are tourists from South Korean side, and this line here, it's actually the border. Yeah, here you can see the tourists a bit better. And there was also one of the only places where I managed to get a portrait of a soldier, as you could see in the video. Luckily, again, it was mostly because of Vicky, because every tour goes to DMZ, so that's why she managed to see some of the guys a couple of times, and we managed to talk them into the photo, basically. And we even got him the guide, and it's quite funny shot because he's so serious, and the guy on the right is like giggling because he didn't know he's also in the photo. And I have a bag with the 3D photo, so it was quite easy to show to everyone what we are doing. Food. This is what you usually would see from the shops from North Korea, but what we got was usually looked more like that. It was like table full of food, and I guess I'm the only person who put on weight in North Korea. because I didn't want to leave food. I didn't want to, be the asshole that, it's like so picky that he doesn't want to eat our food. So every time I finished every meal, and yeah, I hardly move after that. And this is Khan making the clam barbecue. I'm coming from Mediterranean, so we take seafood pretty seriously. So when I saw the recipe for that, I was, quite doubtful. So basically you have, I don't know how many kilos of clams, you put them upside down, really stack them nicely. So recipe is, clams and half liter of gasoline. So you pour half liter of gasoline on top. I'm lying. It's another ingredient. It's half liter of pure alcohol. So after the gasoline burns, it's another little bottle of alcohol that kills a little bit the taste of gasoline. And clams are ready. And surprisingly, they were really, really, really good. No, really, I'm not joking. It's not that I'm gonna start a new tradition in Slovenia, but it was good, especially with some drinks. They went down really nice. And this is Coca-Cola that I couldn't finish. It was not, bearable. So no politeness on Coca-Cola. And this was I think was the only time that they canceled something, one trip, so we had like the whole hour in the place. So first we had food, and then we were like sitting crossed hand, like, okay, now what? And there was like about 12 waitresses. So I shoot them all together, then we shoot everyone together, then I shot each one separately, and then we ended up singing karaoke together.
I'm disorganized. My name's William Furness. The question is, what's the trick? How did you manage to pull this off? You were clearly pushing your hosts a little bit, and you managed to go to all of these places. You suggest that you were masquerading as a kind of enthusiastic tourist. How did you do it?
I mean, here I really had to use all the tricks that I ever learned from all the skills. From technical, it was like challenging. It was the most challenging project. It was like 3D project, mixed with, a bit of documentary. Then it was, all the psychology, sociology skills. It was like pushing for every single photo. I had to go from beginning, as I was explaining. First, to buy their trust of the guides, we started, really in the gloves. But then it was like, the third day we already, established some sort of relationship. And I came in the morning, hey, how are you? And then they were like super, I don't know, like down. I was like, what's wrong? And I was like, Matjaz, why are you shooting portraits of people? Are you not supposed to be shooting, the beautiful buildings and nature? I was like, at that time I was really, really angry because I explained them what I'm doing. They saw me work with people, and I thought I gained their trust already. And I told them completely honest. I was like, guys, if you go into the West and you mention North Korea, people will first, mention missiles. They're gonna, comment on the leaders. They're gonna talk about camps. Showing people it's the only way, to get them closer, not to show the differences but commonalities, If you show, a doctor, doctors will see, their kind of people. Students, they will see students. So it's gonna show the human face of the Korea. So it's not one way, it's not black and white, but as I mentioned, it's like country as anywhere else. There are people who are worried about their health. They are, want to get married. They want to have careers. You cannot judge the country by, the system, but you can only judge it by, people. And every country, it's like, consists of all the individuals.
Any more questions? Lady at the front.
Yeah, Claudia Rosette.
Oh, there's a mic coming to you.
Claudia Rosette, thank you. That was just fascinating. I have two questions, actually. One is, why did they let you do it? What do you think they actually saw in it? And the other one is on the individuals you shot. An uncomfortable question, but I think one that journalists have had to deal with in some parts of the world for a long time. Are you concerned that any of the individuals in these photographs might end up in personal jeopardy because they agreed to do this as as currents shift in North Korea?
I will answer the second question, and Nick, you will answer the second one, the first one. As I said, I try, they set me the rules, no soldiers, no construction sites. So my main concern would be the guides, because I got their trust, they helped me, so they would be the people in trouble. The worker in the factory, everybody saw that I took the photo, and it's, so, yeah, so I took some photos that I shouldn't, but I would never publish them because it would just pumping my ego and nothing else. It doesn't serve to my project. My project was, of course I snapped some soldiers. You saw the guy on the go-kart. It was just too amazing shot, not to take. So sometimes it's better, ask for forgiveness than for permission. And I checked to Khan, and he said, okay, and I was like, yeah, okay. But yeah, I respected their rules because they were my team, and I would never jeopardize my team anywhere on the world, basically.
Yeah, I think working with Matjaz, it's choosing who you work with, and then acting both on sort of the Korean side to understand that they would be comfortable working with him, providing he's going to follow on as he says. And really the purpose of the whole thing. I mean, if they're not daft, you can actually sit down with Koreans and say, this is going to be relatively harmless. There are risks. However, if you work with him and speak with him, he's quite rational. I mean, in the end, we ended up taking about 50-odd photos back and shoving them around the country. That was probably more the bigger task, was sending back 3D postcards around the country back to people. So we know they're still there. But on many projects like this, whether it's film projects or what have you, I think you know where the limits, your peripheries, if you like, and you can pull off projects. We've made documentaries and things where there are limits. You're not gonna, if you're gonna make a film on the mass games, and you then start saying, I want to go to the camps, that's going to cause problems. So you almost like pick your battles. And having him, he really did go way off the track, because he was taking photographs of people that the guides at first were not comfortable at all with, but because they'd got to know him and trusted him, then that was fine and understood the rules. So I think when we actually had this exhibition back in Pyongyang, and the North Koreans saw the range of photographs, they were a little bit shocked, but people in working clothes, people sort of scrubby, but because it was done with dignity, then it was accepted. I remember also there's a lovely thing with Jonathan Watts when he used to go in the Guardian journalist. They said, we don't exactly like what you do, but at least you don't lie. And I think that's as you can sort of work within that limit.
And just the other question. Tonight, surely in Pyongyang they're aware that you're giving this talk. What do they? Yeah, the first question. Surely in Pyongyang this evening they're aware that you're giving this talk. What do they? I'm asking you to speculate, but you had a chance to really think about it and see. Why did they say yes? Surely they don't just think you're an enthusiastic photographer who just loves 3D.
Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I'm not sure if they know about this, but they know about certain other exhibitions. Where they know about the exhibitions we had at Meg's Galleries, both in Beijing and Hong Kong, and we've now been to the States. So it gets picked up. These things get reported back. They're not too worried. They have two, this is sort of slightly off record, they used to have a department that only followed South Korean press, so they pick up all those reports from South Korea, and that gets reported to the powers that be. Now, in the last few years, they've also had an English press report. So if he was to go and say some of the things that he could, it depends really then on what he says and how it's interpreted in the press. That's when problems happen. And very often when it's interpreted in the South Korean press and then taken to Koreans because it's so out of context. But no, generally, I mean, there's nothing they wouldn't find fault with any of this anyhow. the question is it propaganda? It's not propaganda for them either, because I think.
Sorry, I want to give other people a chance, but I wasn't asking so much what they find fault as what do you think they think they're getting from it? What do they find offensive?
It wasn't never reached that
What did they
high.
say?
Yeah. Well, actually, no, it never even reached that. I mean, it is a cultural event because we made it a cultural event. But when it was instigated, it was just between myself and a Korean friend of mine. That was it. There's no hierarchy other than that. It's, look, we want to take a photographer in. Can you do it? Simple. And no more.
Can we, any more questions? Lady at the back?
I'm interested in 3D photography, so
Can you speak a little closer to the mic?
I'm interested in the technique of 3D photography. So I see that there's a pink and there's a green line, but you said you took 2 pictures. How does that happen, and what is the use of 3D photography other than for the interests of North Korean
So,
publicity?
as I mentioned, for 3D image, for 3D photo, you need 2 images, left and the right. And after you have this, there is many, many different ways how you can see it. One way, it's this old school, you know, the cyan and red glasses, which is just really easy, accessible, and it's really cheap if you want to do it in a print. Then you have, you know, the cinema technology. It's like same 2 images, but exported to be viewed in a different way. And as you can also, you can see in the book, for the book, I actually used the old stereo viewer, where you have 2 photos side by side, and you have cards that you put in the viewer, and you can check these images. This is when it comes to 3D technique. And why I used it, I explained. I wanted that you get engaged more with the subject, that you get into their personal space, that, as I said, you're not a passive viewer, you don't flick through, but it forces you to look more into the photo, and you can really deconstruct it. You can see, you know, every object on the image, it stands out, and you will look at it. You will look their faces, their features, what are they wearing. So you can, it's almost like an anthropological project, because these, you know, photos, they're always going to present North Korea 2014, and I guess even, you know, in a broad, like longer period of time, basically.
From the perspective of the gallery, I think when you take these 3D photographs and you put them in a white box, something really interesting happens between the viewer and the photo work. There's a very strong interactive quality, and there's a very strong immersive quality. So you enter this little white box and you're completely immersed in North Korea. And in Beijing, it was very interesting because the space is much bigger, like everything in Beijing, and the crowd is very different. The crowd is more North Korea savvy in Beijing. And we had people, friends of Nick's, showed up from the North Korean embassy to sort of do a preliminary inspection of the exhibition. And Nick explained to me at the time that they sort of have this automatic inspection system that kicks in anytime you use the name of the country. So the exhibition is called 3D PRK, and for them that's a little bit, you know, not polite. We're sort of taking the name of the country in vain and playing with the name of the country. And the other thing they have to come and inspect is whenever there's portraits of the great leaders, they have to come and check it out and see how those portraits are being used. But there's something that's definitely more interactive and more immersive about being in a room with only 3D photography on a subject like North Korea, which is basically unfamiliar to everyone beyond cliches. And I think that's something that Matjaz has been very successful, is sort of getting over the obstacle of the cliches and the propaganda.
Any more questions? Lady at the back?
Hi, I'm curious to know, were your images reviewed by anyone before you left?
Sorry. I had 6 cameras with me, but none of the images were reviewed at any time. So, yeah, as I said, I respected the rules of construction sites and soldiers, and I could also say for North Korea, it's the country where I saw most images that I could not take. You know, I will never forget, we were like driving in a van on countryside, and all of a sudden there was like hundreds of soldiers with gas masks running next to the road. And I like almost grabbed camera, but I was like, no, you know, I mean, there is no way that I can take the photo, and I would just agitate my, you know, my guides, and the next couple of days it's going to be ruined for me. So, you know, you saw amazing stuff, and you just try to enjoy the moment even without the camera. And when we came, you know, to the location, they know what I'm going to do, and we negotiated where I can shoot, what not, and yeah, they didn't check a single photo basically. And also, I already, you know, I had access to internet on the phone, and that was also one really interesting moment. We were driving in the van, maybe it was like already 6th day, where we were really friends with guides, and was kind of, oh, you have internet? I was like, yeah. It's like, can we check something? I was like, sure, whatever, I'm not going to tell anyone. And I was really, really like, what is going to say? And he said, can I see North Korea on Google Earth? I was like, okay, let's go. And I zoomed into North Korea, you know, to have the satellite image, and he was like, wow, so beautiful country. So that was super. I mean, that tells you a lot about Koreans.
Any more questions?
Where did you get the internet from, Victor Mallet?
3G.
But
I mean,
the
with the phone.
North Korean 3G.
Yes, yeah.
But they didn't have that, but you did.
Yes, you can get SIM card, right? And
Yeah.
costs, how much is it?
Yeah, it's over $200. But you can get, as a foreigner, you can get access to the internet. But you have internet. You can also have an international phone, but you cannot connect to your North Koreans. They have an intranet, so they have their own system, but no access to the outside world. The internet exists if I do business with someone, for example, the travel company or the film people, and I send an email, but it goes to the room. The email doesn't go to an individual. It is seen by the whole company. So yeah, you can go around do interviews, etc. in Korea.
I found it interesting that, you know, in North Korea things they change so fast. So, you know, one group goes, let's say, 1 year, and they preach you what happened. Oh, there is no internet. They will, you know, take your phone on the airport. They check every photo, and then you may become the next year, everything it's already changed. So I was on a talk in a similar setting as this, only journalist, and was one photographer doing a series there. And it was like, they checked everything, we couldn't do anything. And it was like, he really portrayed the picture that you hear every time, and of course you're gonna believe it since you cannot check this information anywhere, basically. And then in the end of the talk, there was like, so has been anyone else in Korea? It's like, me. It's like, and yeah, did you see the same image as he did? I was like, no, it was completely different. But the thing is that he was there, you know, on a tour only for journalists. So of course, any question that he had, can we, you know, cross the street and take a photo of that one, was no. Can we do this and this and this? And he had like full of stories of these conspiracy theories, how, you know, I don't know, maybe some things were true, maybe some not, but yeah, it's good to check your facts, you know, before you preach something to a wider audience, I think, about North Korea.
Any more questions? Last one.
I'm not sure if this is a question for Nick or for Matjaz. How did you research all of these amazing locations that were off the beaten track?
I mean, I did first research. I checked all the propaganda, all the anti-propaganda, all the images that are available in the books or on internet. And then I talked to Nick. It's like, oh, this looks cool, this looks cool, this looks cool. And Nick was just like, no, maybe. And I was like, what about this? Because, yeah, things change every month. So Nick had great ideas. It's like, oh, they just opened this. You have to go check it out. Nobody been there. So, yeah, I did first research, and then we went with Nick together. We made a list of, I don't know, a big list. And then it went to North Koreans And they were also no, no, no. What about this, this, this? And we were no, no, no. So it went back and forward for quite a while, basically.
You mentioned that it took 8 months to get this trip okayed by North Korea. I mean, what was the main holdup?
Just convincing them why would they let me in the country, like you asked, you know, because when Nick has a collection of 3D postcards, so he was like, oh, it'd be cool to do something interesting there. I was like, yeah, let's go. I was like, we're gonna go next week, right? He was like, Nick, no. And Nick had to go there, and his partner Simon and everyone, you know, get drunk once, get drunk with them second time, and every time was something, you know, drop my name. Next time he had my 3D images, so he just sent me a snap of all the leaders around officials around the table with the 3D glasses. And just every time pushing a little bit, so in the end it was about 8 months before they let me in. And yeah, before we finish, I would just like to mention that, we brought 5 copies of the book that you should definitely check because it's interesting object. Each one is hand silk print cover. It's edition of 1000 and it's already almost sold out. It was came out in November. It's Matjaz Press. It's the best independent Chinese photo book publisher. So it's available worldwide, but you should check it out. It's really nice to see the 3D images that we talk so much about them. But there you should check the stereo viewer, check a couple of cards, and there is also a set of 5 lenticular prints. Lenticular prints is that postcard, the vintage looking, where you move it and you can get the feel of depth even without 3D glasses.
Here's a token of our appreciation.
Thank you so much.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.